Yo, what is up, you guys? We're back with another stream. I'm going to be covering the US Junior, a tournament I've always wanted to play, actually, but unfortunately, I never got the opportunity. But it's always fun to see this tournament come around. There's just so much action in like all the sections. So, let's see.
Checkmated on the back rank.
Good for you.
Still having a little bit of health issues
Ah,
because I've been
right.
sick for a while. Like, I've been having a fever, but we'll see some of the games. Whoa, Nico Chasen versus. Why is the bar all black? Okay, so it seems like Tani's in a completely winning position. Nico already with a rough start. He lost to Bach No, and now he was the lowest rated player in the tournament, so he was looking to get a win there, and now he's in a good position versus Tani. So we have a Queen's Gambit accepted. All right. So Queen's Gambit accepted. This is kind of the opening you play as black when you want to draw or you are not really feeling as ambitious. Because if white goes e3, a lot of the time black just decides to go either knight f6, put a pawn on e6, and then maybe push c5. But it seems that here, Nico played e4, which is the more ambitious line. And after e5, knight f3 takes on d4. Bishop takes c4 happened. And now black played knight c6. This is all theory, I think. Bishop b4 check is a move as well. I've had this position as white many times in my blitz games. So black plays knight c6, white castles, and now Tani plays bishop e6. So here, yeah, the theory is bishop b5, which I assume that Nico did not know. And after bishop c5, white has to go b4, bishop b6, a4, a6, and Tani probably had this all prepped. Nico is a very avid 1d4 player, so I assume that Tani was ready for all of this stuff. However, Nico took, which is also a move, and then he played queen b3, queen takes b7. So Nico also has this all prepped. Like they're playing like all the top computer moves right now. Knight g7 happens, knight bd2, knight g6, knight b3, bishop d7, bishop d2. So far everything's good. And now rook a1, rook b6. And now queen c4, allowing rook takes f3. Okay, so the top computer move here on depth 15, I don't know if I can trust the stockfish. It says it's queen a4. So queen c4 and Tani reacts with a, you can see that Nico spent 39 seconds on queen c4. So this was a really fast move. And if black has to just make a random move, then he would be in trouble. So for example, say black plays like a nonchalant move like king h8. Here already white can win the d4 pawn and is going to have a better position because, okay, you can take with the queen. And then after all the complications, like there's just a lot of issues. Everything just boom, boom, boom. Everything's being attacked. So this is not a good position for black. However, Tani goes rook takes f3, which is a really nice exchange sacrifice. The idea is after g takes f3, he puts his knight on e5. And now you can kind of see, despite the fact that Nico got GM, what's up? How are you? I'm doing well. How about you? Spain won? Yeah, that's really high. I wanted Spain to win too, so I'm pretty happy. Nico did get GM. Nico's a strong player, but he's really seeming to struggle in this tournament. So after 95, Nico goes queen e2. So here he's already in a lot of trouble. So why is Nico in a lot of trouble here? Despite being up a rook, like first of all, he can't take the pawn because this would be a bit of a disaster. Second of all, actually black's pieces are really powerful. So there's so many ideas of the knights coming in. There's so many ideas of even like, let's see. Even the queen can like come in some ways. So Nico had to kind of bite the bullet here and go into this position, but I assume he might have seen some ghosts with like knight h4 check, or maybe he just did not want to go into this for some reason. Maybe he thought this is a little bit hard to play. It's hard to really blame Nico here because this position is not really like three pieces in general. I feel are more favorable than two rooks. But Nico thinks for a while and he plays queen e2, trying to keep this pawn protected. Now giving black the opportunity to go d3 and kick the queen back even more. And he can't go queen e3, very importantly, because of the move bishop d5. Bro streams every day. Streaming grind never stops. Yeah. I mean, I enjoy streaming, guys. I really like it. So yeah, so after bishop g5, this would already be really bad here. Queen takes g5, now knight takes f3. So Nico is in a really, really tough spot here. And you can see Tani is a very strong attacking player. He's just bringing all of his pieces in. Yeah, it seems like he makes a little bit of an error with e5, maybe allowing f5 to kind of close up the position a bit. And now Tani finds rook g6. So this is kind of what I'm saying when I said Tani is a very strong attacking player. You can just see here that Nico would be checkmated if he was to take the rook. But Nico goes knight d4. This is like really funny. So Tani is like putting a piece under attack. He's just sacking a rook, and Nico's like, nah, I'm just gonna sack a knight back. And it's like the best move. That's why these players are GMs and like very strong IMs. They're very strong players. So what's the idea behind this knight d4 move? First of all, if knight takes d4, now the knight has moved away from attacking the h2 pawn, which means that f takes g6 is a huge possibility. And after queen h3, now white would go rook g1, and there's no longer a knight on f3. So there's actually no checkmate here. If he tries to bring the knight back to f3, white would technically be completely lost if he did not have his own checkmating threat right here with queen b3. And then, oops, this would be checkmate. So some good calculation and really good defense by Nico. After e takes d4, he has to move bishop f4, essentially saying that now his bishop is protecting everything on the king side. This rook has probably got to move because, once again, we're threatening to capture the rook. Say that black decides to do nothing, like a king h8 move. Now, maybe we're still... Can we not take? We can't because there's still some checkmating threats with queen f3. So not quite yet, we can't take the rook, I guess, but rook takes c7 is a huge threat. Queen b3 is a huge threat as well. There's a lot in the position. So we keep going through the game. Nico plays queen b3 instead of bishop f4. And then after king h8, now queen b8 looks like a checkmate, but unfortunately it's just not quite there. Because after bishop d8, black has everything protected. And now an idea is to go rook g2. I mean, white could try to take the rook here, I guess. But perhaps black can just take back with the pawn. Wow. This is like that type of position where it's like so sad because you can see that Nico just has two rooks here for literally two rooks for two knights. And maybe black has like what, an extra pawn, but that doesn't really matter. But white is literally in Zugzwang because no matter what he does, black is going to play queen h3 because now black has an escape square for the king. So apparently taking the rook is not even possible here. And yeah, it seems like Tani is probably just on his way to win this game. A move like queen d6 is in the air. The top engine move is to create luft for his king. And if we look at the pieces, you can just see that Tani already has two pieces for the rook, which is very good. The b pawn is going to fall. Nico's king is very, like, it's in a very precarious situation. So this is really not looking good. We'll take a look at Rochelle's game since I think Derek is here. So let's take a look at Rochelle's game. So Rochelle had a pretty rough start to the tournament yesterday. She had a Najdorf game where she was clearly caught off guard out of theory, and she ended up losing the game. She did put up some good resistance, but unfortunately it wasn't enough against her opponent. So today she's playing against Rachel Lee. Let's see if she has anything cooked up. Okay, so Catalan, interesting. Rochelle is really known for playing like 3 knight c3. I think she's played this like all her life. And after bishop b4, queen c2 Nimzo, stuff like this. But she plays a Catalan. I don't know if Derek taught it to her because like he's the type of guy to play like that. But I feel like Rachel might have been a little bit caught off guard here, but let's see what happened. So she plays a bishop b4 Catalan. A very solid system. And now she goes knight d2. So there's a couple options here. Bishop d2 and knight d2 are the main ones. Knight c3, if you're highly ambitious, is an option as well, but it's not very common. It transposes into like a little bit of a g3 Nimzo. But here, Rochelle goes knight d2. This kind of signifies you want to win. Because in a lot of these knight d2 lines, what black does is she takes the pawn on c4 and then tries to hang on to it with b5. So after castles, a3. And then now you can see that black has already... a3 is a little bit interesting because normally you don't want to force the bishop to take the knight since it always has the option to. But this might still be some prep from Rochelle. So Rachel spent 11 minutes here, which means that she was probably out of prep and had to decide between two options, either bishop to e7, which is a very solid option, or bishop takes d2, followed by taking on c4, where she would end up winning the pawn. And Rachel decided to go for the more dynamic option. Now Rochelle just develops. She plays this h4 move, which is really interesting because instead of committing to castling, what Rochelle is basically saying is that she can just storm her pawn up the king side. Because she can leave her king in the center and then maybe even castle queen side in some positions. That's a possibility. So Rachel plays h6. And now I wonder if a move like g4 would work. Maybe it's a little bit much. Maybe it's a little bit too... Yeah, it might be a little bit too much. Maybe not yet. But Rochelle plays bishop c3, bishop d7. And now she plays g4. So it seems like we're kind of thinking along the same lines here. She just wants to start an attack on the king side. Rochelle is a very strong attacking player, so let's see how... Okay, she takes an f5 instead of pushing g5. Interesting. And then now she castles queen side, and you can kind of see that white's intentions from the get-go are very clear. Even though Rochelle is outrated by over like 100 points, it's pretty obvious based on the decision she's made this game, by going knight d2 in the opening and long castling, that she's really, really playing for a win as white. So Rachel plays bishop e6, trying to stop d5, and Rochelle goes knight e5. A few trades happen, and here, okay, actually, I feel like we really like white's position here because the bishop pair is already an advantage by itself, but more so the king's safety. Once again, if we look at white's king, it's very hard for black to actually break through on the queen side, but white just needs like two moves, and the rook is already staring down the enemy king. So I feel like this is going to be a difficult position for Rachel to play. We'll see. Rochelle's best move here is bishop d4. Stopping knight c5 most likely. And she should be in a better position. So let's see some of the other games here. Nico still has a completely winning position. Alice Lee is really on the back foot against Mishra. This is the top versus bottom seed, I believe. So it's going to be a bit of a difficult matchup for Alice. And she also has black. So Mishra opens up with d4. And Alice is a very solid player. So this is kind of something you'd expect from her. Queen's Gambit declined. Mishra takes. And, oh, it's a semi-Taraj. Okay, so she didn't take back with a pawn. She decided to take back with the knight. After knight takes c3, b takes c3, c5. Mishra goes rook b1. Okay. So the main line of the semi-Taraj is actually knight f3. And after c takes d4, takes on d4, bishop b4. A lot of trades happen. And this is like one of the positions that you get. Or you don't even need to go knight c6. You go knight d7. Castle is b6. And here, black is essentially saying that she has a very solid position. A lot of trades have happened here. And it's around equal. The position is like pretty equal. Black has good drawing chances, I think. And this is probably what Alice was looking for. But Mishra says no. He goes rook b1 immediately, just moving his rook, not allowing Alice to trade off the bishop. So now bishop b4 does not exist because the rook takes b4. So after bishop e7, now Mishra plays knight f3. And after castles, this probably caught Alice by surprise, but Mishra plays h4. Or maybe it didn't because she only spent 20 seconds on b6, h5, h6. Okay, so Alice is playing really, really fast here. You can kind of see on the timestamps, white is spending all the time and Alice is just blitzing out. But so far, so good. And then where did things start to go wrong? Mishra does a rook maneuver with rook h3, rook g3. Knight c6, okay. So a very logical move trying to capture on d4. But apparently, as in the mainline semi-Taraj, she should have put her knight on d7. Ah, she allowed this queen d2 move. That's a huge problem because let's just say that we make a random move for black like rook c8. Now white has this amazing blow rook takes g7. It's not a common idea in these types of positions, but when the king is very weak, you can kind of see how all the pieces start to work together to create a checkmating threat on the black king. So Alice is already in a lot of trouble here. She plays rook g8. Alice, of course, has a very good sense of danger. She knew what Mishra was trying to do, and after king f1, knight takes d4 would probably be met with knight e5. Or actually, apparently knight takes d4. Oh, okay, because of bishop b2 and then queen takes h6. So once again, just a bunch of checkmating threats. Knight e5 as well is like a move. I thought this was good, but apparently the computer finds a way to hold for black. This looks a little bit scary as well, but yeah, knight takes d4 would just win, opening up the diagonals toward black's king. And we can kind of see in like a lot of these games how the king safety matters a lot because Mishra's king is just under no pressure whatsoever, while for Alice it's an entirely different story. So she goes queen d6, Mishra's just developing, and now it seems like Mishra is just up a clean pawn. The engine says +5. This game is going to end soon, guys. This is really, really good for Abhimanyu. The pawns on d5 and e4 completely blunt black's bishop as well. Overall, I just really do not feel good about black's position here. The engine is giving sacrifices, saying that rook g5 followed by queen g5 is a good idea. And you can kind of see here that even though black is up a rook for the bishop and pawn, this rook is doing absolutely nothing. This bishop is doing absolutely nothing. White's going to push h6, and it's going to be checkmate within the next couple of moves. So, yeah, Alice's game is also looking pretty over. This would be a big win for Mishra because I think he started yesterday with a draw. Tani as well is completely winning. Tani was beating Mishra yesterday as well, but he wasn't able to convert that. Andy Woodward versus Bakno is also an interesting game. Andy had a winning position yesterday, but I think Liam was able to hold him to a draw. So this is a really interesting matchup right here. Once again, Andy and Mishra are the two highest rated players in the field versus Bak, who's one of the lowest rated players in the field. So after knight f3, d5, d4, c4, Bak, similar to Alice Lee, plays in a very solid way, and he decides to play with knight f6, e6, and d5. Okay, so this time he does not go for a semi-Tarrasch, which is what Alice did in the game versus Mishra. And instead, what happens is he plays c takes d4, which is also another very drawish line. This is called the Henning von Schera Gambit or something like that. It's like the d4 Berlin. One of my friends called it that name, so that's how I think of it. The d4 Berlin, like when black plays this, you know black really wants to draw. So white has a couple of options here. Queen a4 is one, followed by queen takes d4. But Andy decides to take on d4 immediately, and after he takes d5, bishop g5. e4 is probably what Bak memorized in this line. The engine says plus 0.3 here, but if you play a few moves out, you'll realize quickly it leads to a very equal position. So after bishop g5, bishop e7, like this is one thing that a lot of stronger players do, because Andy kind of already got like inferior position on purpose where black has objective equality, but it gives him chances. It keeps play in the game. Because instead of going for the best line, which wouldn't give him much objectively, Andy thinks he can outplay his opponent, and we'll see that he probably does in the game. Yeah, like here b takes c6 would be better, keeping the pawns compact. But instead, it seems that Bak decided to play for bishop takes c6. And now this bishop is one of those pieces which I like to call a rock stuck in a hard place because it's literally stuck between the two pawns. And if it ever moves, these pawns would be very weak. One example is say queen b3 happens. You can never make a move like bishop d7 back and then try to reroute the bishop because either the d5 pawn will fall or the b7 pawn will fall. So it's a little bit annoying to play with pieces like this. And Bak quickly realizes that Andy's next plan is going to go rook d1, bishop takes f6, trade the pieces, and then go knight takes d5. So he kicks the bishop away and immediately tries to start some counterplay with his isolated queen's pawn. Pieces get traded off. And Andy is just playing very positional. Like this pawn on d5 is a big weakness. Once again, king safety. White's king is really safe. Black's king a little bit weak. Like if queen f5 comes in at some point, It's really not going to be easy. Like white could play h4, try to dislodge the black g pawn. So Bach trades off pieces, and Andy sacrifices the b2 pawn. Once again, it's very important to not be too greedy here for white and try to keep the c pawn. Because, for example, if white goes queen d4 and black goes rook e8, now Bach would be very, very happy. Because sure, Bach is still left with his IQP, but that doesn't matter because now the issue was black's king was so unsafe. But at the same time, the queens have been traded off, so it'll be very hard for white to generate an attack. And he knows this, and he decides to play knight f3. And after queen takes b2, he puts his knight on d4. Essentially saying that despite white being down a pawn, black's queen is in a rough situation. It's almost trapped here. Like he has to go queen c3. Yeah, he did not want to go queen c3 and trade off with this, I guess, because he would have to suffer here. So Bach decides to go for a bit of an imbalance with bishop c2, take the queen for 2 rooks, and now normally 2 rooks are better than a queen, but in this position, like I said before, white is playing h4 to dislodge this g pawn, and Bach is going to have a really tough time keeping his king safe here. I'm thinking for Bach, he should try g takes h4, and after Andy tries to bring his queen into the game, Bach is going to maybe go king h7, bishop g6, and try to just turtle up. But it's going to be very hard, I think. I think this will be a tough defense for Bach. So we'll see how this game goes. Andy's also up a lot of time. Yeah, so I'm really liking Andy's chances there. Yo, let you co-host? You want to co-host? All right. I need to figure out the tech issues, though, because for some reason when I call, I don't think, like, my voice goes through on YouTube. So you can call me on Discord. We'll see if it works. Semi-Tarash, more like semi-trash compactor. Yeah, Vyas, you're kind of right. Like, in this tournament, the semi-Tarash is getting cooked. You know Malloy? Yeah, Malloy's my student. What about him? You're playing him online? Nice. Yeah, Derek, you can probably send a call on Discord. But I really hope that the tech issues don't happen this time, because whenever I call on Discord and try to stream, the audio gets a bit buggy. Yo, what's up? Hey, Peter. Peter Hayes, Malloy? Is that you, Malloy? You're on your dad's Chrome account right now? Oh, you're a rebel. Does he know you're using his Chrome account? All right, we've kind of covered most of the juniors. So Alice Lee, we're expecting a loss. We're kind of expecting her to lose. We're expecting a Mishra win. We're expecting a Nico loss, a Tani win. Brewington versus Evan Park, we've not looked at. This is a game between two. Actually, Evan Park did beat Alice yesterday, so he's in a really good spot in this tournament so far. Is he playing double black? He played black against Alice yesterday, and now he's black against Brewington. Okay, so Evan got really unlucky with the draw. He starts off with 2 blacks in a row. Analyze your game after? All right, I'll analyze your game after. Just send in the chat. So after knight f3, d5, e3, knight f6, c4, e6. This is a very solid system. Actually, I played a game against Zojin Chao, who's a very strong grandmaster here. The game went bishop e7, and after b3, castles, or wait, did I go bishop d? No, I went bishop d6. Yeah, bishop d6 is what I did. Yep, b3, castles, knight b5, very interesting line. No, he put the no, white plays bishop b2 first. Yeah, now knight b5. Yep. There's a lot of interesting lines in this position. You can see that Bach is kind of scratching his head there. Probably realizes he's in a lot of trouble trying to find a decision to make. So after rook c1, a6, knight c3. Now, Evan Park goes b6. A lot of the time, you don't want to go c5 because if you go c5, white can take on d5 and then go d4, forcing you into an isolated pawn position where eventually blacks will have to take on d4. And after knight takes d4, a lot of players just are not comfortable playing with IQP. I do think in this day and age, Discord. All right, let me check Discord. I'm gonna try to add my friend to the co-host with me. So try to tell me if the audio is working, guys, because I know it can be a little bit buggy whenever I add someone to the call. If it's not working, we'll try to figure something out. But one last thing before I add Derek. So I think it's really important for especially for you guys, Malloy and Vias. This is some insider knowledge right here. Like this is ball knowledge right here. You got to remember this. Learn how to play with the IQP because a lot of people are really bad at playing with it and get scared of playing with it. So if you're good at playing with it, that gives you a big leg up on your opponents. So after knight c3, b6, d4, bishop b7. Evan actually already has a pretty good position if he decides to take and then goes c5. But he goes c5 immediately, and then after a few trades in the center, it seems that Brewington is able to pick up a bit of an advantage. There's still a lot of play left here, and Evan is a very aggressive player, so he goes bishop d6. After rook d1, the idea is he wants to take on f3, and after bishop takes f3, queen takes h2 check. And here, apparently, this is really good for white. Brewington is going to have to figure this out on the board, but it's not going to be easy for him to do that. I do think he can do it. He's a very strong player, but allowing a move like queen takes h2, it can be a little bit tough. Hello, hello. It's going well. Wait, do you have my stream open on the other tab? I want to, yeah, I want to see if the audio, yeah, I can hear you, but I don't know. Wait, Vias, can you tell me if you can hear me? Because I just want to make sure that the audio is working. Okay, you can hear me. Can you hear Derek as well? Because Derek is co-hosting with me. Derek Wu, he's a FIDE master. Wait, Derek, say something. Wait, just talk. All right, let's find. No, I don't play for draws. All right, let's find a game. Do you have a game in mind? You want to look at the Rochelle game? All right, we're back to the Rochelle game. So what is happening in the Rochelle game? Rochelle versus Rachel Lee. The last time we checked, it was right over here when Rochelle had to go on move 19. Rochelle had to play bishop d4 and she would have had an advantage. But instead, she plays king b1. And after a5, bishop d4. Now bishop d4 is not as good, apparently. Why is that? So let's try to like reconstruct this position. So white goes bishop d4 and now black goes a5. What's the big difference? I guess the idea is that she doesn't have to move her king to b1, and instead after rook g1, she can start an attack a bit faster on black's king, right? Yeah, so I think that her king b1 move might be where it started getting a little bit dicey. And then now, because now black can go rook b8, b5, b4. And how is Rochelle going to stop this counterplay? Like, I feel that her idea should have been to start attacking black's king instead of playing very slowly in the center. But the engine still says the position's around equal, if not slightly better for white. So we'll see what Rochelle can come up with here. Still a very, very interesting game. Who else do we have in the girls section? So let's see the game of Amy Yang. She's the youngest competitor in the girls section. That she actually started with a win yesterday over Chloe Ga, who's I think so she's Chloe Ga is the second lowest rated player in the girls section, but she's also a very strong player in her own right. So let's see how the game Megan is going against Amy. I'm really liking black's position here because if we look at white's king, it's a little bit weak with the pawn and f3, and it's not really that clear how white's supposed to proceed here. Who are you liking in this game? Megan Paragua versus Amy. It looks equal. Do you think that any side can play for a win? Yeah, it's probably like around equal objectively. All right. And Chloe, who did lose to Amy Yang yesterday, she has a very good position today. So let's see. She's playing against Irene Jiaofei. Irene is kind of the player. She started 0 out of 1, and she's also one of the younger players in the group. I think one of the less experienced one as well. This is probably her first girls junior championship. So players are definitely looking to pick up a win against her. And Chloe is seeming to get the job done here. Let's see what happened. This is an exchange slot. Generally a more dry opening, but it can definitely give white some good chances, especially with good preparation. It's pretty funny. It's like where they say knights before bishops, but Chloe brings out the bishops immediately. This definitely is playable. Just feels a little bit strange, but oh, okay. Knight takes d5, a huge tactic right here. Yeah, this would have been a really good tactic. So it looks like you have to retreat your knight. That's like the obvious move. But Chloe, if she paused a bit, probably would have been able to find knight takes d5, followed by e takes d5 and queen f5, creating a fork on the rook and the h7 square. If rook c7, then queen f7, and apparently the engine says that white has full compensation for the piece. Seven pawns. We can see 7 pawns. White has 7 pawns, black has 5 pawns, but apparently this is just a good position for white. Wait, takes first, and now this is possible because of queen 8, followed by maybe I don't know. This is still a little bit strange. Yeah, it's not an easy move to find for sure. Like Chloe definitely had to think about it a little bit, but she still has like a pretty good position here, right? I feel like white's pieces are all on the king side, while for black, it's not really easy to see how she's going to coordinate. Yeah. Wait, they're saying they can't hear you. Let me see if I can fix this. I'll put up a game in the meantime. Um, put up a different game. Next game we'll check. Okay, so Mishra has just defeated Alice Lee. That was kind of what we were expecting. It was a really good game from him. It seems like Andy is in the studio as well, so has that game ended too? Yeah, Andy was able to win. I thought that Bach might be able to give a little bit more resistance, but yeah, it was very hard to play against the. He blundered immediately after we left. He had to take on h4 and try to hold, but instead he goes king g7 and allows queen b2, um, forking the king and the bishop. This is a really, really big blunder by Bach. I'm really surprised he did that, but wow, I'm not really sure how to justify this king g7 move. What do you think his idea was? Yeah. Did queen b2 just completely like skip his mind? Yeah, maybe he thought hg and queen h5, but even here it works, right? He has rook c1. Okay, that was his idea. So he thought he could hold if it was a little bit more solid, but okay, I'd probably have to use OBS Studio to add you, I think. I feel like YouTube through browser might not work. Do you know how to do it? You used to stream, right? No, I'm just using YouTube Live right now. I don't think so. I do have OBS Studio though, so it's probably possible for me to use it. I'll try. Let's see. Sorry guys, just technical difficulties. Co-streaming on YouTube is a little bit weird, but I think we're about to figure it out. Rochelle's much better. All right, that's a good thing to hear. Okay, let's see. 2 MPS. We'll be back to commentating on the game shortly, guys. Okay. So I'm connecting YouTube to OBS. No. Wait, maybe it might work now. Wait, try talking. Wait, can y'all hear him now? I don't know. It's a little bit weird. I need to close some stuff. Wait, I feel like I almost have it. Capture desktop audio. Wait, I can probably like I can like stream it. Audio. Oh, desktop audio after. Sorry for the technical difficulties, guys. I'm still a noob when it comes to streaming, so just getting it figured out. I'll get it to work, I think. Yeah. I'll give it a few more minutes. We'll try. Oh, did Rochelle make a mistake? All right, let's go to the game of Rochelle. Apparently, she made a mistake, so we're gonna see what happened in that game. Okay, so after Bishop D4, okay, there were quite a few mistakes made here. Like, I played Rook A6, likely trying to play B5 and B4, and here Rochelle missed Bishop F3. So the idea of Bishop F3 is a little bit subtle. She wants to go Queen G2, followed by Bishop D5, and then trade off this annoying E6 bishop, which is kind of the glue of Black's position. It's keeping everything together. Because say that we get this guy out of the way, then White has the opportunity to push the E-pawn. Instead, Rochelle plays A4, which is still a good move. And after Queen B8, Bishop C3. So Bishop C3 is a mistake. Yeah, I'm not really sure why she played Bishop C3. I think she wanted to open up the default to go Bishop D5. That might have been the reason. Yeah, why did she go? Because Bishop D4, Bishop C3. This is really, and against a player like Rachel Lee, you can't really make these mistakes because she's gonna really punish you for that. Like after Bishop C3, now if Black plays B5, all of a sudden we look at the past few moves, guys, and what's happened here. Like ever since White got this good position with the pawn in F4, she's kind of just moved her and tried to make some moves on the queen side, while Rachel has quickly been setting up for an attack on the queen side. Okay, so knight c5 and bishop d5 happened. I'm really liking Black's position though. I feel like it's going to be hard for White to come up with a plan because now even if she removes the bishop on e6, then like Rook can always sit there. Queen e8's an idea, putting pressure on the a4 pawn. And this c4 pawn makes it really annoying. Like, how is white ever supposed to push b3? Feel like it's really not easy. Chloe Gosto has a slight advantage, but Irene Fey is definitely putting up some really good resistance here. Yeah, she plays bishop c6, with the idea of if e takes d5, she's always going to go bishop takes d5 back. So a lot of the games are really double-edged, and Zoe Tang is actually put away with an advantage against Iris Mao. So Iris did win her game yesterday, and I think Zoe had a draw against Megan Paragua. So now Zoe is one of the tournament favorites, if not the tournament favorite, along with Rose Atwell. So she's definitely going to be looking for a win as well. c5 against e4. I believe that Zoe has played the classical Sicilian a lot. So we can kind of see an Alapin comes on. Now, Iris does not take. Instead, she plays d5. And after e5, d4. So it seems like white can't quite win a pawn because here black has knight c6, just keeping this pawn under guard. So yeah, Zoe with some good position. White plays d3. She goes knight c6, and after g3, knight g7, knight g6. Zoe brings her knight out in the game to target the e5 pawn. And now she's actually able to simply just pick up this e5 pawn because white is not in the position to play a move like bishop f4 because after knight takes f4, g takes f4, her pawn structure would be completely destroyed on the king side. So Iris probably realizes this pretty quickly, and after castles, she sacks the pawn, trying to do the best that she can do. And after the queen drops back and the knight comes to a3, this is still like white still has a lot of compensation here because actually, even though white is down a pawn, the knight is going to come to b5 at some point. The bishop on e4 is a monster, and it's really hard for black to finish developing her pieces. So bishop d7, h4, bishop d6, and after trades, knight c4. Seems like Iris is not really committing to the h5 push for some reason. Yeah, she puts the rook on c1. And then after castles, knight a5. Zoe is able to kind of just keep her extra pawn. Like, Iris did have some compensation, but it's starting to disappear a little bit. And now Zoe can probably play f5, rook f6, and try to solidify the extra pawn that she has. So it's looking pretty good for Zoe. The Megan Paragua game is still very equal. Let's go look at the US seniors. We have not looked at that one yet. So we're starting off with Novikov against Fishbein. Fishbein is on 0.5, and Novikov was beating Akopian yesterday, but unfortunately he was not able to win that game. Both very aggressive players and well-known theoreticians, so let's see what happened. Okay, Fishbein goes for this bishop f5 line. It's a pretty dynamic way of playing against d4, c4, knight c3, where you want to go bishop f5 and then put the knight on e4 in the future. And now black Fishbein decides to put the knight on e4. And I actually had a pretty similar game here, where my opponent did something like knight d5, c6, knight e3, and the bishop brought back. But Novikov decides to take, which is a very shocking decision because these positions are known to be pretty equal for black whenever black gets his bishop on e4 due to the fact that he's always controlling the diagonal. So after bishop e3, c6, queen c1, d5. Novikov plays rook d1. And I think he's kind of trying to play like a Catalan type of position where he has his bishop on g2, putting pressure on the diagonal. But the bishop on e4 is just really, really strong. If white ever moves the knight, then black will happily trade off the bishops and weaken white's king a little bit. Okay, so rook c1 was not quite it. Instead, he should have taken first on d8 and then played rook c1. Just a minor mistake, but it's all good. Yeah, and here the position, according to the engine, seems to be about equal. If black can find the move pawn to c5, this e5 pawn is always going to be relatively weak. And also the a5 pawn is going to be a little bit weak as well. So it's really not going to be so easy for Novikov to navigate this position, I think. And you can see he's a little bit lower on time. So we'll see what happens in this game. I do think there's a lot of play left. All right. What else is happening? Shabalov versus Godin, Battle of the Alexanders. There's like multiple Alexanders in this section. So this is a Roy Lopez and wow. A5 here. I've never seen that in my life. This is a really like A6, A5. Cool. So what's the idea here? So he wants to put the pawn on A4 and the bishop on D7, try to control the light squares. And apparently black is already equalized. So clearly the opening did work out for Golden. And in fact, he has a better position already. Shabalov is one of the most legendary attackers of his time. He played some crazy attacking games. G6. Yeah, trying to control the F5 square and H5 square. But a very logical move, which is apparently not the best. The engine is saying black could play an immediate B4 and then try to target the white B2 pawn. Yeah, pawn D5. Okay, and then we got a position like this, which is like around equal, but there's a lot of play in this position. Like black already has control over the C file, and also the knight is going to be coming into G5, which is going to be tough for white to deal with. So Shabalov is, I think, in a pretty difficult situation here. I'm not really sure what white's plan would be. Like, how do you prevent knight G5? How do you prevent rook C8 followed with the rook infiltrating on C2? I guess there's always some bishop C3 ideas to like trap the rook in C2 if it ever enters, but black also can wait before doing that, and you can try some other stuff. That's gonna be it for right now, guys. We'll take a look to see if any games are Onischuk against Jesse Cry. This game is okay. Like Onischuk will probably be able to grind this out. White once again it's just another position where black's king is slightly weaker. And in the senior women's, Alexei Rune with some heartbreak after losing her winning position yesterday. And seems like there's another decisive result likely going to happen in the Olga Sagalchik game, where This just looks like a King's Indian gone wrong for black. Yeah, I can kind of see in this position, like this pawn in h4 is very weak, and black just has a complete lack of space in the position. So I'm not really sure how Chuchnik is going to try to defend that, but it's all right. Natalia Sotokiva is also just in a really good situation as well. 6 pawns against 6 pawns. Sure, the material is equal, but once again, king safety. The black king is just stranded in the center, and white is going to go queen d4 followed by c4, and then probably push b6 in the future as well, with a pretty nice position. We'll check the juniors one more time, just see if any other events ended. And once again, the juniors is my favorite section because I always wanted to play in this tournament growing up. Fortunately, I never really got the opportunity to, but I follow this tournament almost every year. Even when I stopped playing chess, I'd sometimes look at the games. Not much, but I always thought it's a really cool tournament. So yeah, Evan Park did seem to somehow manage to equalize. Brewington was not able to sack the pawn in h2. Wow. Apparently white has knight h4. No, the engine is dropping a bit. But yeah, we look at this position. Black has a very healthy position. Pieces targeting white's king. It's not really easy for Brewington to navigate. And anybody's game, especially with 15 minutes left, it's anybody's game. I really wish I could like stream the end of this. But I'm really not feeling well today, so probably gonna end early. Tani does get a win over Nico, so really tough start for Nico. We're gonna see if he's gonna be able to bounce back. Yeah, Nico is really struggling in this tournament so far, but he, at the same time, he is a very strong player, so he definitely has the ability to bounce back if the circumstances suit him. Liam versus Kirk looks like it's going to end in a draw. Opposite colored bishops. This is just a whole lot of nothing. Kirk, very, very solid player. Kirk actually did start with a double white, so he got the lucky color draw, but he did end up drawing Brewington yesterday. So 2 draws as white is not really what he was looking for, but it's still a pretty solid start to the event. And Mishra took a win. Woodward took a win. Tani took a win. Evan Park versus Brewington, anybody's game. And in the junior girls, it's like, yeah, Zoe is on the front foot. She has an extra pawn. Amy Yang versus Megan. This position, it does say that the position is equal here in the Amy versus Megan game, but I think I would prefer Amy here because I think Megan's king is just a little bit too weak right now, and I really don't like that. So even though it's around equal, I'm definitely favoring Amy there. Chloe Gaw versus Irene is also around equal. Rachel Lee has a huge advantage, so she's likely going to pick up a win here against Rochelle. She just goes b4, put the rook in c6, and then just start pawn storming the queen side. Rochelle, unfortunately, was just not able to get her queen side attack off, which is really unfortunate for her. But that's just how it is sometimes. So she's definitely not going to be in good spirits if she doesn't win this game because Rochelle had some pretty good chances, and she will be on 0 out of 2 if Rachel's able to convert. Rachel will be on 2 out of 2 if she's able to convert. So the opposite for her. And Rachel Lee is one of the pre-tournament favorites as well. She's the 3rd seed, so that would put her in a really good spot. The last game we haven't looked at is Rose Atwell's game. Rose unfortunately lost her first round against Jasmine Su, who also won her first round. So Jasmine was able to beat the bottom seed, while Rose is. You can see that this position is like roughly around equal according to the computers, but I do think I would slightly prefer black due to the fact that her bishop has a lot of potential on this diagonal. And also, I feel like white's knights are not really doing much in the position. Like, there's this saying in chess that a pawn 3 squares in front of the knight controls it fully, and you can see that this pawn really does dominate this knight. So, once again, another objectively equal position, but we're probably going to prefer Rose here. even though the engine does say triple zeros because I don't like draws, so it's easier to commentate when there's a winning game. But who knows? It could end in a draw. That's gonna be it for me. That's gonna be it for now, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Each and every one of you who tune in or who watch my streams, it basically means the world to me. It means everything. I'll be back later. Take care, guys. Peace.